everyone, for the Sous Vide International Conference. My name is Father Leo Paterlinghug. I'm a Catholic priest, but I'm also a professional chef, and I host an international food and faith movement called Plating Grace. And I'm in my little kitchen here with one of your conference organizers, Mike Lashardy.
Hey everybody, great to see you. Let me tell you a little bit about what we're doing here, and then Father Leo will tell you what he's going to do with it. So I pre-cooked a nice boneless turkey breast. Did it at 140 degrees for 6 hours, chilled it down, put it in the fridge. Also have a chuck roast here that was cooked at 131 Fahrenheit for about 40 hours. Anywhere 36 to 48 is good for this recipe. And then chilled that as well. So we're just retherming them in a bath right now at 130 degrees to bring them back up to temp.
And for me, as a Catholic priest, I don't always have a lot of time to spend doing all of this. And so he's trying to convert me to be a sous vide guy. And you know what? I love it. But there's something that I always want from it as well, because when you're cooking any of these meats, there are going to be natural juices that come from it, because higher temperature will pull out some of those juices, and a good cook will know when to stop, because if not, it'll just dry out.
Yep.
But here, this is kind of like a fail-proof approach to making sure these meats stay, I'm going to say it, moist and tender, but it's also going to give us that juice as well, so that we can create pan sauces. But on a technical level, let's start with, first of all, what we're going to be making. I'm going to be making like a mushroom red wine reduction with the purge, or the juices that come from this chuck roast.
Yep.
And then we're also going to make a white wine and herb with like a lemon zest kind of flavor for the turkey. And let's just talk now. Let's get these juices in these individual kind of things, because I'm going to start preparing it. And while we do this, I one of the big things about cooking in sous vide that I'm learning, as probably like all of you are, is that it obviously is going to concentrate the flavor, but because it's at a lower temperature, it's keeping the juices inside. But we want to use the juices because we don't want to let this go to waste. Because my mom always told me that wasting is a sin. So I'm not going to do any of that. We are going to make sure that the juice from the purge from this, basically this turkey breast, is going to be used. You're going to do the same thing with the chuck roast. And here's what I've got, ladies and gentlemen. I've got some bacon strips that I just kind of laid out on a plate. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically wrap the turkey breast. And why? Well, because I want even more flavor. You just season this with what, Mike?
A little bit of salt, pepper, garlic powder. That's it, into the bag.
And so this was at 140. But you all know that poultry's got to be at 165. Why are we lowering the temperature?
So pasteurization, as a lot of our viewers will know, is a formula of time versus temp. So at 165 degrees, the pathogens you're worried about are killed instantly. At 140 degrees, they're still going to die. It's just going to take a bit longer. And so by cooking them, 6 hours is way more than needed for pasteurization. I did that a little bit more for tenderness. Probably about 3 hours based on the thickness of this breast. Mm-hmm. It would be completely pasteurized and safe. You can actually chill it down as long as you chill it properly and your fridge is cold enough. That thing will stay in your fridge for 60 to 90 days safely.
Well, and that's good, because this is something that you can actually do for Thanksgiving. Because a lot of people, I'm just going to tell you now, one of the blessings of sous vide is that it takes away a lot of the drama. And there's a lot of drama when it comes to Thanksgiving. And that's the part that frustrates me, because it shouldn't be. It should be a time to give thanks, not rather to kill each other here, okay? So I've got the bacon just basically wrapped on one side. I'm going to heat my pan up. And I've got my oven at a pretty high temperature as well. And here's what we're going to do. We're basically just going to sear one side, and it's real easy. And I just basically put it so that the seam side is going to go down first. And I'm going to start in a cold-ish pan. And why? Because it's going to help render some of those fats, which you kind of need when you're going to be making pan sauces that have been sous vide.
Yep.
Tell me why, though, because a lot of people don't realize it, because I know that if you're going to try to cook with this, there's not going to be a ton of flavor.
Correct.
And it's not going to have that viscosity and that creaminess that you need. Why?
Well, it's interesting enough also with the poultry, because it's so lean as it is, there's just not a lot of fat to come out. That's why I left the skin on it, so at least we would render a bit. But at those low temps, you're not rendering a ton of the fat and the gelatin that's already in the meat.
Yeah.
So adding a little bit from the bacon in there is going to really boost the flavor.
And that's what we want to do. We're going to just give it a little bit more flavor as well as some texture. And I've got my oven again at a very high temperature at 500 degrees because we're going to pop this in there for just a few minutes to get that bacon just a little bit more cooked and rendered out, because we're going to actually incorporate the purge with the bacon fat and adding to it some aromatics as well. So as that's cooking down, what I want to do is now work on the beef itself. So chuck, tell me about chuck, Mike, and why was this your choice?
You know, it's one of my favorite meats to cook sous vide. Everybody's had mom's pot roast or grandma's pot roast, really, for me growing up. It just has this comfort food feeling to it, so it always makes me happy. But cooking it medium rare is a totally different experience.
It is.
It has so much flavor because it's a piece on the cow that works, and it has a lot of marbling. So to get that flavor in a medium rare steak, I mean, it's phenomenal.
It is. I guess you would call all beef a type of steak, but the cuts themselves determine. Look at that, it's a beautiful medium rare.
Yep.
And what we're going to actually be doing, folks, is we're going to actually create little medallions, and we're going to sear them off, and we're going to kind of make a red wine and mushroom gravy with it. But to help kind of create that, again, that rich viscosity, because it's missing some of that fat, we're going to add some butter, because God loves us. Basically, that's how it's going to be.
Amen.
All right, so I'm like preaching to this guy right now, and I should pass around the collection basket. So listen, so we've got the bacon kind of rendering, and now I'm going to just basically kind of just turn it over for just a little bit, because I want, actually, you know what? You don't even need to. You can even just keep that bacon on one side. Now it's going to go into my oven. And let's get that timed, Mike, for just about like 5 minutes, all right? So now let's start with the beef. We're going to basically break down the beef, and we're going to create basic little medallions with it. And Mike, with the chuck roast itself, normally, how long would you cook a chuck roast if you were not going to sous vide it?
Oh gosh, I haven't done a standard chuck roast in a while, but I think typically
Exactly, that's why I asked. Because we almost don't need to know.
Yeah.
You can just kind of set it in there.
Yep.
You set it and forget it. I sound like a commercial.
Well, and you can also get out of this roast, you can get that traditional pot roast texture. You cook it a little higher, like 165, 170 for about 24 hours, and you will get that nice shreddable, you know, comfort food. Serve that on some grits. Oh,
That's going to be beautiful.
yep.
Do me a favor. I'm going to just ask you for a little bit of, I'll get it right here, the olive oil.
Yep.
And why? Because again, all of the flavor and all of the fats kind of stayed inside the meat, which is what I absolutely love. And so we're just going to drizzle just a little bit of olive oil, and then we're going to eventually just kind of sear this all up and season it. I'm going to set it aside so that we can, again, use the pan with the drippings in order to create even extra flavor. Now, but I did notice something on this, Mike.
Yep.
You did not add fat to the marinating process.
No.
Tell us about that and why.
So it's one of those contested facts that people argue about all the time in the Facebook groups. But essentially what they found is putting fat in the bag, especially with the beef, is going to pull out some of the fat-soluble flavors that's in the meat, and that will then just go away and not be in your meat anymore. So by leaving the fat out, you keep all the flavor in the meat, and then add the fat during the sauce phase.
Sure. Now, you can just kind of eat this right off the bat,
Yep.
and it's going to be delicious, which is what I'm going to do. I think one of the best things that you can do if you're going to be finishing the food is making sure you're testing it to see exactly where the flavoring is, and then, you know, basically how much fat do I need to add to this, especially if we're going to be using the purge.
You know, it's funny, my brother got into sous vide, and he's super lazy. He cooks steaks, doesn't even sear them, ever. And I'm like, I want the crust, but that's his thing. He eats it just like that.
And I do like this flavor,
Yep.
but I think I'm like you. Meat alone is delicious,
Yep.
but it just needs flavoring, and that's why I'm actually going to create a little bit more flavor. So with all the juices that are trapped in here, they're just going to get trapped now into the meat even more, but even concentrated So I just got basically a saute pan, and I'm just going to let this kind of cook out in the pan for a little bit, pull out some of the juices, and then we're going to add to it. So to prep all this, by the way, if you noticed, I had my cutting board for the turkey as well as the beef. And most people, when I do cooking demonstrations, like, I know what I'm doing, all right? I don't want to cross-contaminate anything, but in this case, do I need to even change the cutting board over?
Nope, it's all fully cooked, it's all pasteurized, you are safe to go.
Good. And why? Tell me why.
Because that whole time versus temp, I mean, the chuck was in there for 36 hours, ain't nothing going to survive that.
Yep.
But, you know, even the turkey breast, it was in there for long enough at 140 degrees to kill everything all throughout the meat.
That's right. But, to be honest with you folks, if you are going to be doing this, when you're going to start working with aromatics, you don't want to actually get the flavors together. So even though you don't need to, I can wipe this all down, or I could make it, there's a clean board for you, all right? So we've got this basically cooked off, beautiful, and I'm going to save the meat off to the side so that I can use the same pan. And if you notice, there's so little fat in there right now. And I love that because it's all trapped into the beef itself.
Yep.
We've got ourselves some garlic, and as that's happening, I'm going to not get yelled at by my German culinary instructor. He got mad at me one time for not roasting my mushrooms. So I'm going to just at least pan roast some mushrooms. Boom. We're going to get rid of the garlic peel here. We're going to mince this all up. While we're doing this, I kind of want to just reflect a little bit as to why people even get into sous vide. What's been your experience, Mike, with the sous vide process, the sous vide community?
You know, so I can't talk to the professionals because I'm not a professional chef, but as a home cook, there's so many benefits. It's made life cooking for my family so much easier. Meal prep, we actually have a session just on meal prep at the summit. That's going to be awesome. Being able to cook stuff, batch cook it on the weekend. Here's your 5 minutes for the turkey.
My 5 minutes is done, I thought.
So being able to batch cook stuff on the weekends and then have it to just reheat like we're doing and serve it up really quickly is amazing. It's also really just given me, go ahead.
No, good.
Oh, it's given me a lot of confidence to try new techniques because I know the meat's perfectly cooked. So now I can spend more time playing with the sauce or playing with the side dish because I know the meat's doing its thing and I don't have to babysit it.
That's right. And here's the beauty. I'm going to just take this. We're just going to let the bacon rest on here. Mother of God, that was hot. I forgot. There we go. Just watch out for that.
Yep.
That is what happens with sous vide. You kind of forget how to cook, so please don't forget that is super hot. This is getting hot too. This is getting super hot right now, and what I'm going to do to it, there you go, is we are going to just add some of the aromatics to it as well. I've got some rosemary, I've got some garlic, and I have got some thyme, and I'm just going to basically pull off the leaves here for the thyme so that we can just get that all incorporated.
This is pretty similar too to the Valentine's Day dish you did. I'm very proud. I got Father Leo to do sous vide beef for a Valentine's dish for about, what, 150 people I think we had?
150 people, yep.
And, oh, what a fantastic night that was.
It was. It really was an opportunity to just kind of showcase the sous vide of it all. All right, so now that we've got that, we're just going to add the aromatics to this hot pan. And what's, again, striking is that there's so little fat on here. And that's great. That's perfectly great. But we're going to have to add some to it. But before we do that, I'm going to hit it to reduce a little bit of red wine. So the red wine is going to just go right into here. This is a Zinfandel. I think it goes well. It's just, if you want a nice velvety wine, so a Merlot or a Cab will certainly do well. We're going to let this reduce. Into this pan, however, here's where we're going to add some, what I would just call some real comfort food flavors. We're going to add some sage, because just like sage and turkey, they go well together.
Match made in heaven.
Bacon and turkey go well together, right? So we're just going to chiffonade a little bit of the sage, and then we're going to be adding it into this pan sauce right here, and then we're going to add the purge. So you can see how the purge itself, Mike, if you had purge, how long will that sit in your refrigerator?
As long as you don't open the bag and it's been pasteurized, it'll last the same amount of time. Once
Wow.
you open the bag, it all of it, the meat, the purge, everything, goes to just normal leftover rules where it's going to be, 2-3 days.
So what I would recommend at that point is, if you want to save the purge, put it in basically the ice cube tray
Yep.
makers,
Yep.
freeze it, and then basically make sure that you cover it so that it gets like double bagged or something like that, so that you don't get the freezer burn flavors.
Yep, exactly.
All right, so we've got the sage, we've
Smells
got
so
the
good.
garlic, and basically we're going to be prepping all of this super quick. The sauce here is reducing, it needs fat. But before we do that, that was just a couple minutes, I'm gonna add the purge, and this was actually the purge from the beef itself.
Yep.
So that's gonna go in, and that's gotta reduce a little bit, and we're gonna get that viscosity again with a little bit of butter.
Yep.
And then we've got a little bit of the garlic with the rosemary. And then being very careful again, we're gonna heat this up. Again, it's kind of like you forget to cook because you don't have to. So just be totally aware of your surroundings, so to speak,
Totally.
okay? Now, go ahead.
I'll say too, a lot of people, especially on the chef side, I'm sure you've heard this from chefs, a lot of people view sous vide as like a crutch and then you forget the rest of the stuff. To me, it's just another tool
It is.
in the kitchen and lets you get some really cool results. I don't know how else you can cook a chuck roast to get it tender and medium rare,
Yep.
without using sous vide. So, it smells fantastic.
Yep, the beef flavor's coming through already. The mushrooms are now emitting their juices, and so again, with the lack of juice, add some to it. That's not going to hide the flavors, but complement it. Red wine and beef, hello. These kind of herbaceous qualities of like the rosemary and the thyme and the garlic, those are great. And once it comes to this kind of like bubbling point here, guess what we're going to do? We're just going to hit it with a little knob of butter. I turn the heat down, and now that's just going to get whisked in, and that's going to give the viscosity need to give that texture and that flavor to the beef itself. Now for all of this, what we're going to hit this is with a little bit of white wine.
That's the best sound anywhere.
It's a great sound, and it's a sound that you're going to miss when it comes to cooking with sous vide.
Yep.
Like that hard sear and that hard sizzle. You want that.
Yep.
But the problem is it's very easy to abuse it and overcook it. And so what we're trying to do is obviously create those flavors even if you're not getting that sound.
Well, my trick for that, honestly, I use cast iron a lot. I heat the cast iron in a 500-degree oven for about 30 minutes before I do the sear. Pull it out, 30, 45 seconds on each side, you are done and you have a beautiful crust.
That's right. Yeah, and that's, again, the I think the beauty of it all. You've got to be able to still use both techniques of cooking in order to kind of get that familiar flavor and feel. All right, so this turkey is done. That's gonna, the turkey is obviously done, but I'm gonna just cut a couple slices of it.
Beautiful. One other thing I'll mention about these purge sauces too.
Yep.
Because it's come from the sous vide bag, it actually pulls some of the protein in the meat out. So you may notice as you're starting to, once you add the purge, it'll kind of coagulate in the center sometimes, some little bits of this protein. And you cooked it at a low enough temperature that you actually almost fry those little bits of protein in there.
Frying is key.
And that flavor, that's just another way to build flavor. You can also, after it coagulates, if you don't want them in there, you can strain it if you want a really pure sauce. But to me, why get rid of the flavor?
Now we've got the purge, we're going to add this. So you see it kind of reduced by half a little bit. I'm just going to add now that extra flavor because there's something very comforting about turkey juice.
Yep.
Which a lot of people don't get.
Yep.
Because they overcook their turkey.
Yep.
Drives me nuts, but that's for my prayer time. All right. So we've got that, and I'm going to get a zester, so I'm going to reach in here one more time. So, folks, when it comes to cooking like this, our job is to give you creative ways to make the textures kind of pop. And that's why I added the bacon. As you can see with the bacon here, it's going to definitely give a little bit of that crispness. that we're looking for. I get a little bit of this juice remaining. Dump that in there. And then I'm just going to basically just slice this out. Mike, this is cooked perfectly and beautifully. I mean, my
That
God.
looks fantastic.
It does look fantastic. So we're basically just going to just cut up a few pieces here for the taste testing and presentation purposes, because the rest is going to go to me and my lunch tomorrow,
Exactly.
basically. All right. So
I feel like I figured out what I'm cooking for Thanksgiving now. Bacon and turkey breasts.
well, you figure, again, this is one of these things where you can do this also in a normal oven. Now, here's the thing. You're going to see how some of the protein and the fats are kind of coagulating.
Coagulating a bit, yep.
They're coagulating a bit. So what we're going to do to help all of that is I'm going to hit it with a little bit of lemon juice. I need a bigger kitchen. Hit it with a little bit of lemon juice, and I'm going to whisk that in, but I'm also going to hit the zest as well. So the zest is kind of going to give it that brightness, and the juice will just give more of that liquid that turkey sometimes needs. Not necessarily sous vide turkey, but turkey certainly. All right?
Why don't you tell people a little bit more about plating grace too?
Yeah, because this is kind of weird, I know, to see, the organizer of the sous vide working with a Catholic priest. And Plating Grace is an international food and faith movement to bring families back around the dinner table. Mike and I met a few years back in order to kind of work together and see how our missions, with the sous vide, and then me with my food ministry, how it can all work together. And it really does. It works together quite beautifully. And why? Because we're trying to be more efficient in the kitchen and provide delicious meals for your family. All right, so we've got this going well. This is going to need a little bit of something that's going to help thicken it up. What is that? What do you think it is? I'm going to tell you. It's fat.
There you go.
It's fat. So you can either go the route of olive oil, but it's Thanksgiving, people.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to go with just a little bit of butter. All right. Great. So a little bit of butter on here, and that's just going to melt out into the juice itself, and we're basically going to be done here. So I'm going to put this off to the side. Let me heat this up just a little bit more. One of the things about cooking is that we also try not to, well, with sauces, you don't want to cover the meat necessarily with the sauce,
Yep.
because people might not like it.
We're
right?
not making stew here.
We're not making stew. But look at this. It's kind of a beautiful, thicker kind of flavor because we add that little knob of butter at the very end. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of this sauce. I'm just going to place it on the bottom. Now, it's an incredibly dark, rich sauce now at this point, Mike.
Yeah, it is. Must be the mushrooms in there with that beef jus.
That's right. And so this is quite lovely. And I'm going to just simply take a few pieces of the beef itself. Just put it right down there. And then we're just going to put the mushrooms on top.
That's comfort food right there.
It really is comfort food, and I can tell you this, it'll be very comforting because you're not going to have to work that hard to chew it.
Yes.
So that's one of them. That's kind of done. And we'll obviously snap photos of this so that we can put it on our Facebook pages and such like
Yep.
that. And this just gets kind of brought in. Now, here's what some people would do, and I would recommend that you do it as well. You can actually hit this up with a little bit of flour and whisk that in order to create that gravy quality. So why don't we go ahead and do that real
Cool.
quick. And why? Because again, we are just simply adding just a little bit of gravy to this. It's going to mix with the fat. Can you put that back there, Mike, please?
Absolutely.
Now, I probably should have done a more kind of Italian trick to it all by taking the butter and dabbing it into the flour itself and letting that mix together. But I pulled the whisk out, so why don't I use it, right? I think that's the whole point. This is coming together beautifully. Now it really does look like a gravy itself.
Yep.
And then what I'm going to do is just hit it with a little bit of salt and pepper. We've got some beautiful flavors. So we've got the white wine. We've got some of the herbs from the garlic and the sage. We've got the lemon juice. And now we're going to hit it with some salt and pepper. And we are basically going to be done. I'm just going to get up another plate so that we can
Beautiful.
put this all together. Mike, any thoughts or any last minute questions about the purge itself? Because we don't want to let it go to waste, for sure.
Totally. Honestly, this was super helpful for me. I'm guilty of throwing that liquid gold away more often than not. And especially, I cooked some Iberico pork a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
And I threw the purge away, and then I was like, oh my God, that was Iberico. Why did I? That was just like liquid gold right there.
Yeah, it really is. It really is quite a delicious thing. And the more that I'm getting involved with the sous vide movement, the more I can see its benefit. And then also, the more that I can see, oh, by the way, if you really want another bright burst of flavor, just hit it with a little bit of mustard or even capers at the end of it. It will definitely bring a real kind of brightness to a dish. And I think sometimes Thanksgiving needs that. This is, in a way, a great answer to many prayers, Mike.
Yep.
Because a lot of people have so much drama when it comes to the, by the way, I am going to mince just a little bit of flat leaf parsley because I asked them to buy it. And it wasn't for garnish necessarily, because I always believe that garnish should be edible.
Absolutely.
So I'm just simply going to just mince this up a little bit. But this is taking away the drama. It's assuring that it's going to have texture and flavor. But with these kind of finishing sauces, you'll have the familiarity that people are sometimes missing if they're eating only sous vide.
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite things about sous vide in general is being, and one of the things that brings me the most joy in life is entertaining.
Yeah.
And every year for my wife's a medical resident, and we invite 20 to 25 of the other residents over the summer.
Wow.
Couldn't do it this year. But with sous vide, I can pre-prep everything, finish it with a couple sauces like this, and then I can actually hang out with my guests.
That's right.
And it's just it's added so much more joy to my entertaining.
Absolutely, and what we have now is no longer beef stew, but we literally have a beef with
look
a
at
beautiful mushroom kind of reduction with red wine. Again, you could add some butter as well as some flour to it, and if you even wanted to cheat more, just hit it with a little bit of cream, and that would even make it even more creamy.
See if we can do a close-up.
Sure, yeah, we'll bring up a close-up to you so you can see
This
it.
is just too beautiful for you guys not to. I'm so sorry you can't taste this right now.
Well, I will tell you that we will taste it, and we will not lie.
Correct.
So here is the beef once again, with the pan juices, and here is the turkey with the that kind of butter, white wine, and cream. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to Mike, or you can reach out directly to me. My name again is Father Leo with platinggrace.com. Any final words?
No, thank you for doing this and for being a part of the conference. Really excited to be able to show people a little more on this.
Oh no, so we got to do the taste test and we got to
All right.
pretend like we're on the Food Network. And by the way, you can also watch my show. I've got a TV show called Savoring Our Faith on EWTN. It's on Sundays at, wait, he didn't even pray yet. Blessings on this food and on all of you in your conferences through Christ our Lord. Amen. And
Amen.
how does it taste?
Oh my gosh. Is that a prayer? Oh my God, it's so good.
This is insane.
I put a big honking piece of beef in my mouth and I can still talk and chew at the same
I
time.
love it.
Thank God for
Here, I'll
sous
trade
vide.
you.
All right.
You can try the other one.
Listen, I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks very much. And if you do have questions, feel free and put it into the ask. We good? Bye, everybody.